And welcome back to the online classroom for business studies. I hope we're all well and going well with our isolation. Let us keep going with our studies. So, today we are working on the Shark Tank report again, and we're going to be specifically looking at the operations section of it. Okay, now some of you might be wondering, sir, why don't we start off with the summary section? The summary section is quite straightforward in what it wants you to do. And you should be able to do most of that by yourself. There's also the problem of it's a summary. So we're also going to need to know what we're going to do in these other sections before we can summarize them in the summary section. But you should be looking at sort of what business you are going to be doing, what are you going to be selling, and address and things like that, the basics. But today we're going to look at the operations segment. So let's have a look at it here. Okay. So in our Shark Tank report, and I'll show you what I mean. If we go flip back, okay, this is our Shark Tank report, and you will notice that it's divided into those four sections, okay? Operations, HR, marketing, and finance, okay? We're going to do the operations segment today. So let's go on to it. So, here's what we're going to be looking at. The service the business will be providing, the process of the business in action, and the quality management procedures in place. Now, your report will need to include all three of these for your report, okay, for the operations segment of it. Now, what I also want you to realize is you'll notice that there's little page numbers near each one of these dot points in the report. It's for the textbook, but a different type of textbook than the one you have. Not to mention, it's also for an older version of that textbook as well. Now, the readings that I put up next to each one of these lessons, they're the ones that you can read. And I've tried to summarize each one of those, but there's still going to be a couple of pages that you're going to have to read. Okay? The bright side of this is because it's operations, we've done this reading before for the other Cambridge book, so you can actually sort of just skip through these readings and get the important information. Okay, so let's have a look. Immediate recommendations are, of course, do the readings. Okay, it's going to help you. That's simple though. Let's keep on moving. So let's look at that first dot point. Okay, the service the business will be providing. So when we're looking at this dot point for the operations segment, what we're asking you is, will your business be providing a product, service, or both? Okay. Remember that businesses can provide a product and a service, and we've got an example at the bottom, which is Australia Post. Okay. It's a business that provides both services and products. Okay, because it mails the postage, that's the service, but you can also purchase letter materials, box materials, and other sundry goods at the post office. Okay. So you have to figure out what service your business will provide. Will it be a product or a service? And what is going to be that product or service? Okay? That's effectively just asking you, what are you going to be selling? Okay? Now, this one is where it starts to get maybe a bit more complicated, okay? In which it's what is the production process of your business, okay? And if you go into your readings, it will tell you the different types of production processes, okay? And we've also looked at some of these things in regards to the previous section that we done in regards to the batch production, things like that, okay? The second thing that you're going to be asking are what are its inputs and outputs, okay? So we've got a lovely one here, okay, where you've got two different diagrams and it shows you the different inputs that goes into each one. You have the transformation procedure and then the output. Okay, now the first one here is a very generic one. It doesn't actually give you any sort of detail, sort of just saying, here's how you could do your one. Okay. Meanwhile, this one here, you can see that the final service here, the output, is delivery of financial services to customers. So here were the raw materials that you needed to get those financial services. You needed raw materials, computer software and paper, capital equipment, which was security screens, computers, safes, and office furniture, labour, tellers, mobile leaders, lenders, managers, and lawyers, information provided by market research companies to assist in the product design and delivery, time and money. These sort of things that you originally had to put into the business, the process, to get that output. When you put these things in, they don't automatically just make the service or the product. You have to have that transformation process in which you have, for example, for financial services, investment advice, ensuring good customer service, ensuring the computer systems work, and establishing banking systems and procedures. Okay? Now, in the booklet, in the readings that you got, they've given you a product instead of a service, and they've also drawn you a massive picture, okay? So I think their version was muffins, okay? So the inputs would be like things like flour, water, bread, okay, butter. Then the transformation would be the actually cooking of them, but obviously not just like your lovely parents or guardians where they're just putting it in one at a time in a little baking tray. They're going to be doing it over a very, very big production line, okay? And the output is the muffin, okay? So you are going to have to talk about what's going to be the process of your business here, okay? What's going to be the outputs that you're going to need for your what's going to be the inputs needed for your output, and how are they going to be transformed into that output, okay? Now, each one of you, unless two of you are doing the same product or service, are going to have different inputs, transformations, and outputs, okay? So don't be too concerned if your one looks very different from somebody else. You could have a very different product or service, okay? But really, these dot points here, these are what you're definitely going to need for almost any product or service, okay? So if you can work out what your inputs are from these, okay, plug it in, then you're probably going to get like that, okay? Now, one of the things that I will say is when you're doing this report, it doesn't just have to be sections of just text and paragraphs. To be honest, I don't really want to see that, and you don't want to write that many paragraphs, okay? We really encourage you to use diagrams, graphs, tables, okay? These are things that you can include in your report, and that's fine. What we do ask you to do is you make it look professional, okay? And you're not just including a picture in there for the sake of filling up space. You've also got to make sure that your picture is yours by right, okay? Keep aware of copyright issues and plagiarism issues. And if you're going to include pictures, put things like your own tables and graphs and data that you have made. If you need help making tables, graphs, and data, you can email me. You could probably even email someone in either TAS or Maths as well, especially if it's an Excel problem. Okay? So, let's keep on going. Okay? This isn't a very long lesson at all. Now, the next one that you'll need to include for operations is quality management. Okay? So, how will you ensure the quality of your product or service? Okay? So, you've got a product or service, but how are you actually going to ensure that it's a good product or service? Okay? What systems are you going to put into place? Are there some systems that may be inappropriate with your product or service? Okay? And how will you make up for their inconsistencies? So let's give this for example. You have a factory that does mass production, okay? And you could be mass producing any type of goods or product. But when you are mass producing something of that scale, possibly tens of thousands every single day, then you might not actually have the time or resources to check every single one of those products. and make sure they work and that they're of good quality. So how are you going to overcome that? Well, a couple of companies, they sort of just see, well, we're not going to get every single bad thing that comes out of the factory. So what do they have? Well, they have a very good complaints division in which it's very easy for the customer to get a hold of that product provider and say, look, your product is of terrible quality, it's broken, whatever. And then that business can provide a replacement, and that's their version of quality control and quality management. Okay? And also, how are you going to include quality control, quality assurance, quality improvement, and continuous improvement in your product and service? Do you have to include all four of those in your report? No, but I want to see that you're thinking about this quality management though. Okay. Now, to the left of us, we actually have something that explains the difference between quality assurance and quality control. And we want you to sort of be choosing between the two. Now, you can try to include both of these at the same time, absolutely. But you might find it's actually difficult to include both at the same time, or it might be too expensive. Because remember, all of these quality checks and quality controls and assurances, they're all going to take up the time for your employees, and their time is going to be costing you money. Now, to get a very brief summary of the difference between assurance and quality control, I like just this dot point here. Quality assurance is a preventative technique, and quality control is a corrective technique. So, quality assurance is trying to prevent the problem before it happens. Quality control is you've recognized there's a problem, you're trying to fix it. Okay? And like I said, different products and services, you're going to be focusing on one more than the other, which is quite expected. Okay, and we use the mass production in the factory as an example for that one. Okay, so what are we doing with this? Okay, basically you're going through these three things and you're trying to see how they are going to apply to your business. Okay, so go through your business, okay, and start trying to answer these. Now, it doesn't have to be in full report form at the moment. No. What I want you to try and do with the rest of this lesson is write down dot points underneath each one, okay? If you have still not chosen your business yet, then I want you to keep on working on that and looking at your product and service, okay? This is what I want you to do for the rest of the lesson. Keep on working on your Shark Tank report. And if you have any problems, email me. Excellent work, and I hope we're all staying safe.